Ask yourself every day, if I were to let go of the notion that I'm not creative, what would I create today? What would I make? What would make me smile? Good day, everyone. I am Nanette Saylor, your host of the Create, Play, Live podcast, and we are gathered today for another wonderful episode. And today we are focused on beauty and romance, thanks to my delightful guest, Shirley Ann. Shirley Ann comes to us as a world traveler. She is currently in Southern California, and she has made beauty and romance her life for as many years as she can remember. She has been a fashion designer, a wedding gown and wedding designer, an interior decorator, an event designer, and a luxury lifestyle consultant. She's also an artist, a fashion illustrator, a floral painter, a silk flower maker, floral designer, a photographer, and as she says, an on and off poet and writer. So I am delighted to introduce you to Shirley Ann today because she really embodies this idea that beauty and romance can be a part of every aspect of our lives. She is particularly engaged with the Greek goddess Aphrodite and uses that muse to inform and infuse everything that she brings to the world. I also know that you will love to hear her talk about her beautiful little boy, who she affectionately calls Cupid. So without further ado, I am going to introduce you to Shirley Ann and invite you to listen into a wonderful conversation that I know will inspire you to bring more beauty and romance into your life. So welcome, Shirley Ann. I am so glad you're here and looking forward to this conversation because I know I need to bring more beauty and romance into my life. So.
Oh, thank you so much, Nanette. I am so happy to be here with you and having these conversations.
Yeah, we have been connected now for a number of years. I'm trying to think quickly how many it is.
It's been 7 years.
Wow. Isn't that fun?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I should share with everyone that you made a beautiful flower for my daughter's wedding and just had all kinds of intersections in our lives that continue our connection going and going, even though we are on opposite coasts. So I love that the technology makes that possible for us.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And I would love to hear you share how it is that, I read quickly that long list of all the magical things that you do. And it, on some level, it feels like lots. And on others, they're all so beautifully connected. Can you talk to us about how it is that you are weaving all of these beautiful pieces together and what it is that you are particularly passionate about creating now?
Okay. I think this is the perfect question to begin with because anyone who looks at my life and my creativity from a distance, I think they feel overwhelmed when I don't.
Yes.
And I keep, exactly. And I keep on trying to explain that for me, it's all one and the same thing. Whether it's fashion, art, flowers, poetry, decor, it doesn't matter. For me, it's all one and the same thing. It's a way that I choose to live my life. It's the way I create. It's the way that I choose to serve. And it just happens to come out in these various forms, but it's the same thing. It's always been the same thing. So I'm happy you started with that question because I'm sure anyone listening would be like, "Oh my goodness, what is this?" But it's one and the same thing. It's one and the
And
same thing.
you share all of this work so effortlessly. I love your Instagram feed. I just think is
Mm,
it's so inspiring because it's so soft and so gentle, and
mm,
it
thank you.
flows, and there's color and light, and
Mm-hmm.
everything is as luxurious as it can be. I think of cream and flowing fabrics and
Mm-hmm.
shining things, but not too much glitter. It's all super
Mm-mm.
classy too. So talk to us a little bit about what inspires you.
Okay, I think I'll give you a little backstory as to how I've arrived at where I have. So you mentioned that I designed weddings in the past, and I did. I designed wedding gowns, and my company did the decor for the wedding. Anything that had to do with the visuals and the aesthetics, we took care of. And there came a time when I think I was doing a wedding almost every weekend. And so, yes, for the bride, it was wonderful. It was enchanting. It was their fairy tale. But for
Mm.
me, it was beginning to become exhausting. Here we were spending a year and a half, 6 months planning this one day. And then within a matter of hours, it was over. And
Mm.
it, it, it just, as I continued to do them over and over again, it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me because how is it that one woman puts all this effort, time, money into this one day? And what, after the one day, she just goes back to living a normal life? It made me
Mm.
crazy. And so when I left my last company, I made a decision to have romance and the fairy tale and the beauty and the luxury in every day, to have it present in every single day of my life. And of course, in the lives of anyone else who decided to join my world. And this is what led to me painting now and the flowers. And my intention is to have all these things that were present in every single day of my existence. So
Isn't that
that's the inspiration. Mm-hmm.
Yes, how beautiful. And I don't think in all the times that we've talked in the
Mm-hmm.
past and
Mm-hmm.
all of the exchanges we've had, I don't think I've ever heard you share it quite like that. This idea
Mm-hmm.
that you were in the business of creating a fantasy as a
Mm-hmm.
wedding environment, and that you were doing it on an extraordinary level. That
Mm-hmm.
this was this really ultra luxury
Mm-hmm.
experience for brides, and
Mm-hmm.
that the awareness that then it was all gone and everybody just went back to their ordinary existence, that is what has driven you
Mm-hmm.
to seek having these special pieces be a part of everyday living. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I just think that is truly a special gift, because you're
Mm-hmm.
right, especially
Mm-hmm.
women. We think about these beautiful and romantic things as
Mm-hmm.
luxury on a lot of
Mm-hmm.
levels. We're going to put everything else first, and maybe then we'll
Mm-hmm.
add this extra special piece or accessory that helps us feel good. I mean, what comes to mind for me is the idea that just fresh flowers, right? How many
Mm-hmm.
women do you and I know who won't treat themselves to
Mm-hmm.
fresh flowers in their homes?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that when I see pictures of you in your home, you have
Mm-hmm.
flowers everywhere.
I do. I do. To add to that, so for some reason, fate, the gods, whoever, the universe, I don't know, decided to put me in the California desert. And it was such a contrast because back at home in Ghana, I had the most luscious green garden, which I had planted myself. And
Mm.
I didn't even have to buy flowers. I just walked into my garden and cut my own flowers. And that my home, my workplace was always overflowing with flowers and greenery. And then I found myself in the desert.
Ah,
And I have and I've tried to plant flowers and nothing has nothing. Everything has died. So that was another source of motivation to start making my own flowers so that I can have
Yeah.
flowers all the time and everywhere. So I just decided to share that with
Oh, that's fabulous. So
you.
tell us about your flowers
Mhm,
because they are
mhm,
quite unusual. You use a
mhm,
special fabric and special
mhm,
notions.
mhm. As you know, I have been a couturier, which is, a custom dress designer, and have made wedding gowns in the past. And so I've always enjoyed embellishing my designs with flowers. And as I mentioned, upon coming to California, I was inspired to continue to learn different ways of making silk flowers. So I can make flowers with pure silk. I love to use organza. I can make flowers with synthetic, or I can make flowers with anything. And
Mm.
it's been a lifelong, I've been devoted to learning. I'm always researching French flower making techniques, which obviously it began with couture. I'm always experimenting, and so yes, the garden has to grow in the desert.
Yes, yes. Yeah, what fun.
Mhm,
So, and I love that you mentioned that you're always researching because I think one of the things
mhm,
I hope that these conversations do for people is to provide them with opportunities to
mhm,
learn new things and to hear
mhm,
from people like you
mhm,
how you go about getting your inspiration and where you go to look. And I know that books and stories have
mhm,
been an integral part of your journey and your discovery of
mhm,
the way that some of the icons of various times, and particularly women of various
mhm.
times, how that has
Yes.
fueled your motivation really to continue to pursue this idea of romance. So share with us a little bit about some of your favorite ladies.
Oh, uh, where do I begin? Um, Obviously, my ultimate muse is Aphrodite.
Mm.
I even added her name to mine. My husband thinks I'm crazy or he thinks I'm joking. I keep on telling him that I'm going to make the name change official. I'm going to call
Yes,
myself Shirley and
you wouldn't be the
Aphrodite.
first.
Where do I begin? With the women, Aphrodite has her own very special story, which I'll share a little later. But I have been obsessed, intrigued with, I call them the most fascinating women in history.
Mm.
Women like Cleopatra, like the Queen of Sheba, particularly the courtesans from 16th, 17th, 18th, even 19th century Europe, the writers, the artists, writers like Anais Nin, artists like Georgia O'Keeffe. It's you would think I was doing a university thesis. I have
Mm.
devoted so much time to reading about them, reading their stories. Why are they household names? What made them fascinating? I've read about their love lives, their fashion, their creativity. And it's a never ending source of inspiration for me because even though it's becoming a woman's world, it's still a man's world in a way. I hate to say that, but it's true. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like to come from the angle of not competing with men, but what is our place in the world as women?
Mm.
And this is what fuels my voracious curiosity when it comes to researching these women. Now, of course, I have my angles, but research about their achievements, and I do, but I'm more interested in their form of expression, how how they found the courage to express themselves, especially in years gone by, their romantic lives, what made them irresistible, and
Mm.
I could go on forever, but every day, all I have to do is to think about a woman or a number of women, the lives they lived. And that has been my ultimate fuel for creating my own life. And
Yeah.
of course, hoping that I too become fascinating and interesting one day. So,
Well, and of course, you already are, my dear. Fascinating.
thank you.
Yeah, is it? I
Mhm,
love that you
mhm,
shared this idea of how that really you're not looking at these stories
mhm,
to read the classic
mhm,
definition of their of
mhm,
this these the woman's success.
mhm,
You're
mhm.
reading these stories looking for their lifestyle, how it
Yes.
was they
Mhm.
existed in the world from from a state of being, from a state of
Yes.
beauty, from a state of
Yes.
romance.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, certainly when you think about characters like Queen of Sheba and
Mhm.
Cleopatra, wouldn't we all want to be as irresistible as they apparently were in their time, right?
Exactly, and that's my obsession, because we don't have to be queens. You know, we just have to, well, obviously learn, but there's so many ways of being powerfully feminine, which is, these things are available to us, especially now. And so I'm devoted to the idea of powerful femininity.
Mm,
And I feel I feel in order for a woman to be truly powerful in today's world, or for her to feel like she's powerful, she has to become a man virtually. And I can't make generalizations, but more often than not. And again, going back to women like Sheba and Cleopatra, they were, yes, they had these masculine traits when it came to ruling their people and, being good queens and all that, but it was their femininity, their bold and powerful beauty and femininity, which makes us remember them.
as you were talking, what came to mind for me was the classic
Mm-hmm,
example, which of course was my truth as a hotel
mm-hmm,
manager.
mm-hmm,
I, had a closet full of suits,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
to look just. And when I first went to work, I had, the classic white blouse and the gray
mm-hmm,
herringbone, just like the
mm-hmm.
guys.
Exactly.
And it was only over time that I got bold enough to buy a purple suit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was my favorite. It was my favorite.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
then, and of course, early on, I adopted wearing pins on my
mm-hmm,
lapel, unique
mm-hmm,
pins, because it was a way I could show my personality a little bit, but
exactly.
not go outside of the standard, right? Gosh,
Exactly.
in that day, of a woman in an executive position wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
even worn a dress.
Which
That was
is,
too feminine.
mhm. And that is what makes it makes my blood boil, because
Yes.
why? Why? And I also believe we haven't. So again, this leads me to why I research these women, because I was going to say, maybe in your environment you didn't have a lot of role models to show you how to be feminine in that situation. And this is why I personally had to go back in time to
Yeah.
find these powerful feminine role models.
Yes.
So this is something I'm very, very, very passionate about. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah, me too. Well, and
Mm-hmm,
again, another image that came to mind, I was quickly
mm-hmm,
trying to flash through
mm-hmm,
my thoughts about, has there ever been a time in American history
mm-hmm,
specifically
mm-hmm,
where we had very feminine women who
mm-hmm,
were powerful? And what
mm-hmm,
flashed to mind for me were some of the female cowboys, but
mm-hmm. Ah.
they were not
Mm-hmm.
showing up as feminine. They were often
Mm-hmm.
totally dressed as men, which
Exactly.
which is
Exactly.
interesting. Just
Mm-hmm.
to think
Mm-hmm.
about
Yes.
that even in that time, and we have some examples of
Mm-hmm.
women who the general population didn't even realize were women half the time,
Exactly.
and
They
that
they
was the
had to
only way.
pretend.
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
only way that they could exist in those
Mm-hmm.
particular roles.
Exactly.
So, it's interesting to me to think about
Mm-hmm.
when did the shift occur? And
Mm-hmm.
that'll have to be a conversation for another day. When did we lose,
Uh-huh.
from a world level, what
Mm-hmm.
happened that we lost these very expressly feminine leaders, you know, and shifted to, okay, we have, there certainly have been women leaders, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not expressing themselves in a feminine way much at all. And somewhere there must have been an impetus for that. And I don't know what it is. So we'll have to, that
Yeah.
has piqued my curiosity for today, for sure.
Yes. I know it began with the church. You
Mm.
know. Yes. And that is a whole other conversation. But
Oh, yes.
but I think that's where it began. Remember the scarlet letters and, this,
Oh, yes.
calling women witches, that I think that was the suppression of true femininity and feminine power and the rise of masculinity being the only form of power. So we'll leave that for
Interesting.
another day.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you
Mm,
for that
mm,
reminder and that
mm,
opening. Yeah,
mhm,
very interesting. So now, informed by these beautiful historic references, and
mhm,
your muse, Aphrodite,
mhm, mhm.
where is that taking you now?
So I said I would talk about. I want to focus on Aphrodite now and how she ended up being my muse.
Yes.
Um, Going back to the beginning of our conversation, I have what appears to be too many interests, right?
Mm.
From the outside looking in. And even with my husband, he's like, can you focus? Well, that's what he was doing in the beginning. He doesn't do that anymore because he understands now. But he would say, could you just focus on one thing? And I cannot do that to save my life.
Mm.
And then when I came to the online world, trying to package myself to present to the world, it was the same thing. Can you just focus on one thing? Be known for one thing, and then and I tried and tried and tried to explain to people that it is one thing, you know.
Mm.
And so, about 2 years ago, I found a little course. It was a quiz. It was a quiz on branding and the Greek archetypes
Yes.
and how they feature in branding. And I knew about the Greek archetypes, but I hadn't really studied branding this extensively. So I took the quiz, and initially I was going to dismiss it. I thought I was going to be the creator simply because I'm so creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up being the lover. And I was like,
Ah,
I I want to know more.
yes.
So I went about, because when I start doing research, oh my goodness, it takes over my life. I become obsessed. So I started researching the lover, and the more I read, the more I felt this resonance in my
Mm.
soul. It was like, oh my goodness, this is who I've always been. But I couldn't find the vocabulary to explain, because I know who I am. I don't have to explain to myself who I am. The struggle usually comes when I have to explain myself to people,
Yes.
and it's been a struggle. And so I found the lover, and I researched the lover, and that led me to Aphrodite and Venus. And the more I researched them, the more I felt at home in my soul. It was like, finally, I found a way to explain myself to the world
Yeah.
around me, and explain myself with vocabulary that already exists. You understand what I mean? And
Yes,
not try
absolutely,
to.
I do. And I
Exactly.
know that, you're not alone in the creative world.
Mm-hmm.
being in that
Yes, yes,
space of not being able to find the right words. I know that it's
exactly.
true for me
Yes,
to
yes. And
how
so,
do I describe what this is? And
mm-hmm,
so I think it's a magical solution to
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
have discovered, and that this connection to a
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
character, an archetype that exists, and
Yes,
that the language
mm-hmm,
is already there. And I think it's a great
yes,
lesson for all of us, because
mm-hmm,
for me, it
mm-hmm,
highlight what I share often about, as
mm-hmm,
Julia Cameron calls it, the great creator, that
mm-hmm.
nothing is original, right?
Yes, yes,
Everything has been. And so as
yes.
creators, we get stuck in this place of, oh, I have to say it differently or call it
Mm-hmm,
differently or
mm-hmm.
make up some new word or do something.
Yes,
And the truth is that the stories exist to be interpreted and invited into our current
yes,
state.
yes,
And
yes.
all we do is morph them and sort of
Mm-hmm.
manage them and make them our own. And
Exactly,
so it's
exactly.
perfectly okay, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
come to these understandings. And as you describe it so beautifully, you could feel it in your soul that you're
Oh, yes,
connected to
yes,
this beingness, which
yes,
is Aphrodite and
yes.
the lover, right? How did you
Mm-hmm.
choose between Venus and Aphrodite?
I really don't know because there was there was the decision. Do I choose? And I should have chosen Venus because she's the Roman goddess of love and beauty, and Aphrodite is the Greek goddess. And I do find myself being drawn more to, the Italians and the Romans. But for
Mm,
some reason, it had to be Aphrodite. And I want to read this little excerpt to you because I know your community is one of creative people like myself. And this gave me permission. It gave me permission to just be my crazy creative self. So,
mm.
if you will, let me just
Oh,
read this.
please. Yes.
Yes, it's from The Goddess in Every Woman by Jean Shinoda Bolin. So
Oh,
this
yes.
is yes, I think we've discussed her. So this is about creativity. Aphrodite is a tremendous force for change. Through her flow, attraction, union, fertilization, incubation, and birth of new life. When this process happens on a purely physical plane between a man and a woman, a baby is conceived. And the sequence is the same in all other creative processes as well: attraction, union, fertilization, incubation, and new creation. The creative product can be as abstract as an inspired union of two ideas that eventually gives birth to new theory. Creative work comes out of an intense and passionate involvement, almost as if with a lover, as one, the artist, interacts with the other to bring something new into being. This other may be a painting, a dance form, a musical composition, a sculpture, a poem, or a manuscript, a new theory or invention that for a time is all absorbing and fascinating. Creativity is also a central process for many people. It is an in the moment sensory experience involving touch, sound, imagery, movement, and sometimes even smell and taste. An artist engrossed in a creative process, like a lover, often finds that all her senses are heightened and that she receives perceptual impressions through many channels. As she works on a visual image, verbal phrase, or dance movement, multiple sense impressions may interact to create a result. Just as Aphrodite the lover may proceed serially through many affairs of the heart, Aphrodite as a creative force may involve a woman in one intense creative effort after another. When one project ends, another possibility arises, and that fascinates her. when I read these
Ah,
words, I
beautiful.
was I was home. I
Yes.
was home. Yes, I was home. So I thought I thought I had to share that with you.
Thank you so much. And isn't that what we hope for all women? That
Yes.
we'll find our way home, right? We'll
Yes.
find our way home.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's my intention
Mm-hmm.
for all that I do to bring this work
Mm-hmm.
to the world.
Yes.
That in this
Mm-hmm.
pursuit of our creative essence, we come home. Yeah. Thank you
Yes.
for that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Ah, wow. Where do we go next? What else would you like to share with us?
Let's touch on romance. Yes,
Yes.
because so I hope you can see how everything is weaving together on this beautiful idea. But it goes further. I touched on my inspiration, or should I say motivation, from the weddings to make every day extraordinary. But then it had to go further. Now, typically, when we think about romance, it goes to, a relationship between a man and a woman, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the ultimate. But there's so much more to romance than simply the love affair or the marriage or the courting. Romance can be found in everyday life, and you're going to laugh, but I love the Hallmark channel. If I'm free, even if I'm busy, I spend my entire weekends watching Hallmark. And if you've watched Hallmark movies, you'll know that sometimes the couples don't even kiss till the end of the movie,
Yes.
right? And it's so cliche. It's so
Yes.
cliche, but I always get to that part, the end of the movie, when they finally realize that they're in love, and I just sigh. But
Mm,
that feeling is what I wish I could put into a bottle and have everyone drink.
yes.
you know and so I used the Hallmark example because here's a situation where we're just watching two people, suppose, and we know it's a movie, right? But
Yes.
we're
And if
watching
you've
two
watched
people
a
fall
lot,
in
you know
love.
how it's going to end, right?
Exactly.
They all
So
end the
it's not like they all end the same. But what I tap into is that feeling. It's a feeling. Romance is a feeling. And I feel that for a woman, the feeling of romance comes through feeling adored, or feeling
same.
beautiful, or witnessing beauty, or witnessing the creation of beauty.
Yes.
There's so many things that lead to this feeling. And all my creativity right now is devoted to having that feeling over and over and over again in a woman's life, or maybe a man too, but we're focusing on women. It's not as if we even have to bring in new things into our lives. It's the awareness. Here we are, we're so rushed and stressed and busy. We don't even have the presence of mind to pause and engage with life.
Hmm.
And so my intention for all of my creativity is to bring back the relationship between a woman and the beauty that she's surrounded with. So yes, you can buy a bouquet of flowers, but if you put it on the table and you don't enjoy it, you don't witness it, you don't engage with it, it's pointless, right? But
Yes.
if you can buy the bouquet of flowers and spend time with it, and every time you pass the table it's on, you touch them, it's two different experiences. It all boils down to being present and being aware with and of the beauty that surrounds us. I wish, or it's my hope, that we can all live in this way.
Yes. Me too. Me too. Yeah, and I was so enjoying listening to
Mhm,
you describe the difference between
mhm,
simply
mhm,
buying flowers and putting them on the table and
mhm,
experiencing what
mhm,
that is and means and
mhm.
engage with the flowers. I
Yes,
just loved that phrasing because
yes.
it's so true. We are, so
Mhm,
many of us, I see it everywhere I go,
mhm,
that
mhm,
women are distracted and not present, not aware, not
mhm,
engaging in
mhm,
their environment in a way
mhm.
that brings life.
Exactly.
What came to mind for me is how many women are out there with a cupboard full of scents
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
that they
Yes.
never wear or use.
Exactly. Because when I have these conversations, the argument instantly goes to money. And I say, no, no. Yes, yes, money makes everything easy, but no. It's the willingness to engage with
Yeah.
the beauty. You see, it's like a love affair. Are you going
Yes.
to be fully present? Are you going to look into your lover's eyes? you
Yeah.
know, or are you just going to, walk past them? It's the
Right.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And to be able to bring creativity and service to romance, that's everything.
Such a beautiful connection there.
Mm,
Such a beautiful connection there. I am
thank you.
so glad that we had time today to
Mm,
have this conversation. And I
me
know
too.
that we will have many more because there are so many layers to this.
Hmm.
So many layers.
Yes,
And
there are.
as we wrap up today, please
Hmm.
share with our listeners how it is that they can get in touch with you, where they can see your beautiful paintings and your expressions and creations in the world. And yeah, tell us how we can stay connected, please.
I have about 10 Instagrams. Because I realize
Which one is
again,
your favorite now?
well, La Bella Muse, La Bella Muse on Instagram. And then, of course, there's my website, shirleyandaphrodite.com.
Okay. So let me
Um,
just repeat that for everybody. So it's
mm-hmm.
shirleyandaphrodite.com is the
Yes.
website.
Mm-hmm.
And is it La Bella
La
Muse?
Bella Muse. Yes.
And that's your favorite Instagram
That's
handle.
my favorite Instagram.
And I imagine that once you find
Mm-hmm.
one, you'll find the others.
You'll find the others. Yes. Yes. I'm not going to inundate you with all of my little pockets in the world. No.
Well, and I will be sure to add in the show notes as many of
Mm-hmm.
those links as we can. And certainly you and I will connect a little bit here to get some of the references too, because I think
Yes,
there were
I
some
will.
really
Mm-hmm.
great things that came up in this conversation, some
Mm,
wonderful references to
yes, I would
stories
hope
and
so.
people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
inspiration. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
so excited. So before we say goodbye,
Mm-hmm.
please, will you share with everyone? There's one thing we did not talk about. Your little boy,
Uh-huh.
Anthony, who is just so adorable. What does he think
Oh,
about his nickname, Cupid?
he loves it.
Ah,
I love the woman I've become,
yeah,
and I say this humbly, but I do. I love the way I'm raising my son because he knows his mother is this woman, you know, and
hmm,
he's to understand my world,
yeah,
So I told him that mommy's now Aphrodite, and I had to explain to him that my work in the world is to inspire romance and beauty. And then I showed him a picture of Cupid and his arrow. And
uh,
I told him when he grows up, even though Cupid is a baby, it's going to be his job to continue my work. So he
ah,
he understands that when he's asked in school what he's going to do when he grows up, he says, work in his mother's company.
There we go.
And that makes me so happy and so proud. He's just a joy. He's my reason for being and for forcing myself to become better and thinking about my legacy. So yes.
Yeah, and that's another conversation for another time too.
Yes,
Legacy.
I think so.
Yeah, lots. Many of the women who listen in are in that place of thinking about legacy, and certainly through our children is one of those ways that we
Absolutely.
see
Yes.
our passion and our ideas and
Absolutely.
our being continue, right? So.
Absolutely.
Oh, so glad that we came together today.
Oh, me too.
This was really delightful. As always, I'm every time we connect, I am reminded to experience my world with more intention and attention to things of beauty. And it's easy for me because I spend a lot of time in the utilitarian place of the repurposing place. It's easy for me to skim over sometimes that little extra touch that adds that beauty to something. And I'm always grateful for the reminder that there really there's power there. So that's one of my key takeaways today too, is this idea that the powerful feminine is a persona that we can all embody a little more, right?
Absolutely. She's
and
available.
That legacy, passing that on to the next generation,
yes,
I think will be a glorious gift.
It will.
Thank you, my friend. And with that, I am going to sign us out and say thank you to our listeners. This is Nanette and Shirley Ann. We're going to close this latest episode of the Create, Play, Live podcast. And until we meet again, we will send you all off to look for beauty and romance and invite more of it into your lives. Thank you.
You are listening to the Create, Play, Live show, where women come together to share how curiosity and creativity lead them to extraordinary lives. I'm your host, Nanette Saylor, and I'm honored to share the mic with some truly amazing women who have asked and answered the question, what if we stop adulting and live every day with the curiosity of a child at play? And these enlightening conversations will invite you to let go of outdated standards, make your own rules, and give yourself permission to play more than ever before. You have the power to create your life. Spend some time with us and you'll learn to see life through new eyes and challenge yourself to new possibilities. We may not solve the world's problems, but we will get you to think differently about your own. Come play with us. Listen and subscribe at createplaylive.com.